you think that the next guru or the next teaching is going to show you the way,
Right.
and but you still haven't gotten it, that there is no way. You make the way. And so the true spiritual awakening is realizing that this is your life,
Yeah.
and nobody's going to come and tell you how to live it, because they're not inside you. They can't tell you who you are because they don't know who you are.
Welcome to the Conscious Broadcast. I'm Danielle Kane, and I'm really excited that you could be with us today for another episode. This place is a place where we share our stories and get to connect with one another. And I have a very special guest, Epiphanio, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about him, and then we're going to dive deep into what he's been working on. So he is a citizen journalist, podcast host, Dark Night of the Soul coach, Gene Keys guide writer, painter, designer, musician, entrepreneur. Pretty amazing man. I can't wait to hear more about him. And he's been a truth and spiritual seeker his whole life, studied numerous spiritual traditions, loves great conversations and stories with riveting character arches, but above all and everything else, he loves God. His purpose in this life is to help lay out the blueprint for a real civilization. He's doing this by helping people heal, move through their dark night of the soul, and awaken to their deepest and highest purpose in life. So welcome, Epiphanio. Thank you for joining me today.
Hi, Danielle. Thank you for having me.
Yes, what a bio. I mean, you've done a lot, so I can't wait to see how you've gotten to where you are. Tell me a little bit about your background. Would you say, growing up? How did you become this painter? Or is this something that you had in school, that you had interests? Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, when I was a kid, I was fascinated with space. It was
Mm,
just about, everything was about space. And I remember watching the Return of the Jedi
yeah.
in the movies, in the theater, actually. I went to the theater.
Mhm.
And that changed everything in my life, because, it wasn't just spaceships, it was Jedis and the Force. And it's like, and then after that, it was just all about space, play with my toys. And so, but it always sit with me, the Force. What is the Force, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
and so that was the beginning of everything, really. I grew up, I'm a lonely child, so I grew up by myself. So
Mhm.
I'm used to be by myself, so I became very creative to
Mhm.
just play with myself, play with,
Yeah.
on my own.
So where are
And
you from?
I'm from Mexico.
Mexico.
Hmm. Yeah.
Awesome. It's beautiful. I've been to Mexico City before. Beautiful place. My parents actually met there.
Oh, wow.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, Mexico City is a trip. I grew
Yeah.
up in Mexico City. And then I moved to several other places, but right now it's just 40 million people living
Oh my gosh.
in a concrete jungle. So it's like,
Yeah.
it's I
When did you
wouldn't live
come over
there
to the
now.
Yeah, when did you come over to the United States?
1998.
Mm,
Yes, I've been here more than half my life. Yeah.
that's great. Now, did you speak English before you came? Did you learn English?
Yeah, yeah, not to the point that you can have a conversation like this, but I grew up with English my whole life, so I came here, and it was just a matter of watching TV and talking to people, and
Yeah,
and
that's
you pick
great.
it up. Yeah.
You're submersed into it, you pick up the language, and yeah, and I just want to share a quick something. My dad came from Nicaragua, but met my mom in Mexico, and he didn't speak any English. So he learned it watching Sesame Street. So we
Yeah.
cut. Yeah, I mean the things that you learn, right? It's part of the process. It's part of personal development, right? And I think it's really important too, like to get yourself in the culture, to really get to connect with one another's and learning the language. And I mean, being bilingual, I don't know if you're trilingual or have other languages, but
Just
um,
to, yeah,
just do. But
just
it's
English and
amazing that you
Spanish.
can be able to connect with people on so many levels.
Yeah, just at this point, I'm an American citizen now, and I live here. I've lived here. I'm an American now.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
but I haven't forgotten, the fun of slang and the whole thing, because Spanish is really fun. It's like,
Yeah,
there's just it has, it's kind of like, it's really mischievous in its slang, and
yeah.
it's silly and kind of like double entendre and stuff, and it's really fun language. you
Yes.
know
I'm not. I don't speak Spanish. And when I'd go visit my family, they would laugh when I would try to speak, and I'm like, what's so funny? And and I'm like, I'm just not going to speak it, And so I had a hard time being vulnerable, but they did. They would say things and then I'd like try to translate it. I'm like, that doesn't translate to anything. So
Vulnerability, yeah, that's
yeah.
everything. Absolutely.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. So you grew up in Mexico, came to the United States, was very interested in space, and that's kind of where things started. So what happens next?
Well, I came here for that was the beginning of my spiritual journey. I started
Okay.
studying with teachers and masters and gurus, and I went to
Okay, so
everything, channels and everything for 15 years. I
so let
came
me go
here.
back a little bit. Let me go back
Yeah.
a little bit just because I'm newly I guess spiritually awakened. I kind of never really I'd say 2017, 2018 I had my spiritual awakening. And I mean, like I think there were moments of the buildup, but would you say you had a spiritual awakening or were you always in tune with your spirituality? And then how did you know you wanted to work with gurus and things like that?
Well, I always had a conversation with Jesus because I grew up Christian
Hmm.
and I love Jesus. And it was like for me it was going to church, but the thing for me was when and there's a moment in mass when everybody, at least in Mexico, the kind of church I went to,
Hmm.
I don't remember what kind of church it was because I'm not Christian anymore, but um, there was a moment where we all would hold hands and sing this song about this is the prayer of
Hmm.
the prayer of Jesus, our Father, and we would sing it, and I would, in that singing, I would feel God, and I loved it. I just loved singing. And so
Mm,
before I even came here, I became a singer. I had a band. I had, and so that was kind of like the beginning of kind of
that's
like,
awesome.
and so it's like I've been my whole life I've been connected, and it's like it's just a matter of when kind of like the spiritual awakening, if you would call it like that. I would say it more like a fork in the road.
Yeah,
Is when my father died and my sister gave me my half sister, because she's a I'm an only child, but that's from the marriage of my dad.
sure.
She gave me a book that really changed everything. Well, one of these many spiritual great books, and
Mm,
and then after that, I really just I learned the basics. Like you create your own reality.
yeah.
We're all God here. We're writing these bio machines, these bodies, right? But this is we are not the body. And so things
Hmm.
like that totally, at that point
Yes,
I was like probably what 60 15 or something. It just was like wow.
you were
So
blown
I was
away.
I was
Yes.
already writing songs and I had a band, so I started putting all of that stuff into the songs.
Now, what kind
And
of band did you have? Like, was it
it
like
was
what kind of?
it was 1995, 1996, I think, 1996. And I had an alternative
Mm.
music band,
Loved
Mexican
alternative music.
alternative. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a little bit of grunge, a little bit of
Hmm.
funk, a little bit of
Hmm. I
jazz, a
wish that
little.
music was still kind of popular. You don't really hear it that much anymore.
Yeah, it's all hip hop now. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I listen to now all I listen is just electronic, without lyrics or anything, like
yeah.
it's I'm into it's called it's a type of very ambient techno.
Okay.
Uh, um, um, I can't recall the name, but
It's okay.
it's just kind of keeps going forever, and it's just like it puts me into this trance,
Oh, yeah.
and I don't really listen to music with lyrics anymore. I do like to listen. Lately, I've been gotten into 80s music, which I used to hate because I
Oh
thought
my
it
God,
was
I
just so
love the
cheesy.
80s.
But
So
when I when I
cheesy.
when I was in the
The
90s, I thought it
cheese
was
is the
so
best. We
cheesy.
do.
But now I love it. It's like
More cheese, the better.
I don't see it as cheesy now. I see it like these
No,
guys knew what they were doing.
they knew what
But
they were doing.
yeah, yeah,
Exactly.
and
And I love the sounds. You probably are really connected with the beats because those beats are like all keyboard, and you just don't.
I'm a musician, so I know about effects and everything. So the effects on the drum kit,
Yeah.
it sounds so
Like,
80s and it sounds so dated, and the
yeah.
keyboards are really basic,
Like
but the
Africa is my
arrangements.
song. Africa, you know that
Oh,
song with
Africa,
Toto?
that's what
Oh,
Journey? No, what's he?
Toto. Toto.
Toto, right?
Yeah.
That's oh my god. Yeah, no, I'm talking about like more like pop, like like
Okay.
George Michael and
Oh
like Michael
yeah.
Jackson and Quincy Jones.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
I
love it
love
all.
I love also Guns N' Roses and
Yep.
Motley Crue and all that stuff. I was totally into that in the 90s.
I was
But
obsessed with Alanis Morissette.
Alanis Morissette was
She was my
amazing.
jam.
The first album of Alanis was a gem. I mean,
Yeah.
I had it and it was a masterpiece. It's still a
It's
masterpiece.
still
I
great.
mean, yeah.
She's amazing. Yeah. So that's awesome. So you had your own band. You
Mhm.
really really connected with God. And I kind of can relate to what you were saying. Like I almost hate to say spiritual awakening, but I know a lot of that's kind of where we can kind of connect and understand, oh, that's the shift in consciousness that you had. I mean, for me, it was my sister was like talking about doing the spiritual work at night. I'm like, I don't know what that means. Because I was like totally like living my life and just
Making
going, waking
money.
up every day and doing my best. I own a gym and a small like boutique personal training gym and we're trying to get better and grow and we were going through some struggles and that's really where I felt like kind of stuck. Like that's where the dark night of the soul was because I was like I had children. There was we were overextended and it was that in that point in time where I realized I was in more control than I thought that I had. So Dolores Cannon, quantum healing hypnosis is really where it shifted my mind. It was all a matter of a book, listening to a video, and it was like, what? We create the reality that we want to live in. We're just characters on this planet. So yes,
Great stuff. Dolores is amazing. Yeah.
you were. Tell me a little bit about once you were here. You started your band. You started. Were there any gurus in particular that you met with, or spiritual leaders you would say that you worked with?
Actually, my band was in Mexico. When I moved here, I moved by myself.
Okay.
I wanted to go to Seattle because that was the grunge scene,
Yeah.
I wanted to, see Pearl Jam and the Stone Temple
Yes.
Pilots and the Alice in Chains and all that stuff.
Did you ever see Pearl Jam in concert?
I did. They're amazing. Yeah, they're
I'm
epic.
sure.
Yeah.
His one,
Yeah.
I love the one, what's that one that he did specifically for that movie? Into the Wild. I loved that. Did you ever hear
Oh
it?
yeah. Oh yeah. It's an acoustic one.
It's an
Yeah.
acoustic one. That's
It's
gold.
beautiful. Oh, it's
But he has
beautiful.
some
No,
great music in general.
oh, they have over 200 songs or
Yeah.
300, something like that. They're legend now.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily like them anymore. They're kind of like, eh. I mean, I've changed now. What I listen to is movie soundtracks now and jazz and stuff. So
Yeah.
it's like, but I came here and I went through the entire roster of basically channels. Abraham, Ramtha, Bashar, the Seth books, everything, the Pleiadians, Barbara Marciniak,
Mhm.
I just, went through the entire thing and met people and they kept introducing me to more stuff and I started and I
Mhm.
went to some events and I went to, many different places. And I just, after a while, I realized that I kind of had become addicted to gurus,
Mhm.
and that's a thing. That's a kind of like a stage in your spiritual evolution when you think that the next guru or the next teaching is going to show you the way,
Right.
and but you still haven't gotten it. That there is no way. You make the way, and so the true spiritual awakening is realizing that this is your life
Yeah.
and nobody's going to come and tell you how to live it because they're not inside you. They can't tell you who you are because they don't know who you are. But
Mhm.
when you realize that you can take all of this information, that's what I've one of my greatest teachers, Ramtha, he really taught that. He really nailed that. Um, you know that everything that we hear is philosophy, it's information, it's data, right? And we have to become it. We have to experience it, and only when you experience things, then you can actually have knowledge, because that's
Mhm.
your experience. It's truth at that moment.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we have beliefs. Beliefs are
Right.
important, but they are not going to show you who you are.
Right. And two, I think that's an important thing because someone's experience could be completely different than somebody else's experience. So their truths
Everybody's.
are
Yeah.
different, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes they're in alignment, but sometimes they might not be. I think
Yeah.
that's really, really important. Like you said, knowing the way. Um, there's a great song. It's you don't have to know the way knows the way. And you have to trust the feel the way knows.
Which which
And
which song is it? Which
it's really
artist?
called The Way Knows. And you'll have to I'll have you would love it. I'll send it to you. I would sing it right now, but
Are you a singer?
yeah. All right, now you got me having to do it, because
Oh my God, she's gonna sing.
don't have to know the way knows the way. You don't have to plan the way, trust the way, feel your way, the way knows, the way knows, the way knows the way. Isn't that beautiful? I just love
That's
that song.
beautiful. Yes.
And I actually, there's some song circles that I'm like, I was a singer too. So I was in a lot of choirs, choruses, and I wasn't really into like the opera scene. I was into like the alternative. So I sang like Alanis Morissette at like karaoke's, and
That's so cool.
um, I also sang like Fiona Apple. And
Oh, I
people be
love
like,
Fiona Apple.
oh
Oh, Fiona
yeah.
Apple is
And people be
awesome.
like, American Idol or whatever it was. And I'm like, no. But
that first album of Fiona Apple was amazing. Then later she got experimental and amazing, like out there.
oh
But the
yeah.
first album, Shadow Boxer, I remember.
Yes.
And the
Yep. I
beats, she
sang
wrote
Criminal.
everything. Criminal is
Criminal,
amazing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was more my scene. And then, but I've loved singing, but I always wanted a band, but I never got a band together.
Ah.
And, but there's these song circles that some of these festivals that we go to. So my husband and I, Brian, since we've entered this new kind of lifestyle, I have to say, COVID really changed our life, because we had to shut down our business and then pivot. We still have one of our businesses open, but it's all a blessing, because we got to really truly live our lives. Now we got to work on each other as a couple, spiritually and in our own lives, where we weren't working on any of that stuff at all. And so now we're meeting people locally, like-minded, like this. Like, this is why I want to do this, because I want to know you. And hey, if I ever end up in Arizona, hey, I can meet up with Epiphanio and we can go to a concert.
Yeah.
But so with that, they have these song circles, and that was one of the songs, and that really struck a chord with me, like in a good way. Because it's true. It's like, it was truth. It was like a song of truth. The way knows the way. And let's just not worry about it. Let's talk about your personal development. You wanted to talk a little bit about that. And I'm very interested in talking about your podcast, because you have over 600 episodes on your Planet Homemaking channel and podcast. And you have a channel on Telegram. And that's how I found you, and through another friend. So let's talk about how, with all of your own personal development and spiritual growth, you come to have this podcast and share in that way.
Well, first, let me destroy personal development very nicely.
Okay.
Personal development is fucking bullshit.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a trap that puts people in a hamster wheel of never ever finding fulfillment, because they're never good enough. This is an industry that in the world, millions of people, they're spending money constantly to become better people. That is based on at the very core, all of us in this reality, this whole entire reality is based on this core concept, which is coming from a higher, higher is not the right way, a whole reality where we have access to all information, and we feel the presence and the love of the universe, and we come and land in this reality with about 2% of our capacity. So we have this natural inner desire to return home. Mm-hmm. And because of that, we have what we call in the Gene Keys, and what I really talk about a lot, what's called a sacred wound, which is, I am not good enough. I am not worthy of love. Every single one of us in the entire of humanity, all of the problems, every single thing we do every day, every conversation we have, we are trying to heal that. Mm-hmm. At the very core, we all feel like we are not good enough and that we are not worthy of love. And so wherever we go, whatever we do, that's what we're here to do, to heal that. So what personal development does, it's put a fucking carrot in front of you, and you're gonna go behind the carrot for all eternity. There is no place that you will be good enough, because that thing doesn't exist. We are the children of God. We are already perfect exactly as we are, exactly where you are, who you are perfect. Now there is refinement. We want to expand, like a child wants to become, grow, and we want to do things, but that's a very different thing. Wanting to do things than doing it because you're not good enough. And
Mm-hmm.
that is what personal development has created in this reality. A bunch of people that are don't feel, and we all don't feel that we're good enough. And so no matter what you do, you will never be good enough, and you will always be unfulfilled. So if we trade that concept from not being good enough into just I want to be happy. I like to
Yeah.
do this. I want to
Yeah.
learn that. That's a very different place from coming, not because I'm not good enough, but because I wanna have that experience. And
Right.
so I talk about that a lot on my podcast, because and it might not be very popular, but it's my truth. I've lived it. I've
Yeah.
experienced it. I've been in the personal development hamster wheel, and you ain't going anywhere on that one. You're
Well,
always going to
can
be
I
beating
dissect?
yourself up for not being
Yeah.
good enough. Yeah, go
I
ahead.
want to dissect that a little bit with you because I've always felt not good enough from day one. Where does that come from?
All of us.
Is it an
Well,
innate? Is it an innate thought? Is it a program? Where does that come
well,
from?
this is there's channels that say that this whole multiverse. I'm not just talking about this galaxy. I'm
Sure.
not just talking about this
Yep.
universe, but this entire multiverse. This one, it's a sort of a womb that
Hmm.
was created from the refuse from a previous multiverse, and so everything here has this kind of seal, this kind of code in the subatomic quantum world that says we are made of trash, we're
Really
made of
interesting.
refuse. And so, but that is exactly the purpose of this
Right.
multiverse, to grow out of that. What can grow out of that? And this is what we are. And so we're at
Right.
a place where we can make that transition and transform trash or whatever
Sure.
that
Sure.
was in another universe into a completely different form of life.
And I love that explanation because I didn't wasn't really raised. My dad was raised Catholic, my mom Protestant, but they were kind of Unitarian. We kind of just they were more open to me kind of learning any kind of religion, spirituality on my own. So here and there, I quickly understood sinning from the Catholic Church, and I
You're a
just never
sinner.
I never resonated with that. I'm like, wow, I'm like born in sin. I just that's a personal belief that, but then I still held on to this worthiness, self-worth that I'll never be good enough. I did whatever I could do for my parents to love me because I felt I already kind of knew I was a little different, but I didn't know why. And it was like that's where I kind of woke up later on in life that I'm like, oh, because I knew this. It's like you start to remember things and things that in my intuition, I feel like that makes sense to me. So I appreciate that angle of like looking at this from some multiverse of just feedback, whatever that we're carrying in ourselves and our DNA or whatever it is, our
It's a
consciousness
catalyst. It's a catalyst
catalyst.
for evolution. Yeah. And
Yes.
so it's like we all have that. So you're not the only one. You're not
Yeah.
special, Danielle.
No,
We
I
all
don't.
have that. We
Right.
all have that at the very core. So it's not about getting rid of it. It's about becoming aware of it.
Right.
When you are aware that at the very core of your essence, the sacred core wound of all of life is, I am not good enough. I am not worthy of love. Then it's in the forefront. So it
Sure.
can't control you. Only the things you're unconscious about can control you. But if you're conscious, you can go, oh, that's the sacred wound. That's why I feel like, upset, or that's why that person said that thing and now I feel bad. It's not real.
Mm. Do you feel
I
like
am loved.
do you feel like generations that are like, coming in? Because, Dolores Cannon talks about like the children, they're different than we are. Do they
Yeah,
have that same wound?
we all have.
Um,
Everybody
that
has it
even them
here.
coming in will still feel not worthy. Because I mean, I talk to
Yeah.
my children all the time, and my daughter especially has a strong confidence. Never once did she ever feel like she wasn't worthy, but she might not be able to verbalize that now.
Well, it's at the very core. We all have different levels of advance in our evolution, because there's
Hmm.
some people that have done a lot of work throughout lifetimes or in other planets or whatever. So they
Yeah.
come here and they're true masters. And some of these kids are true masters. So they've already worked through that one. There are tons of people that are not, that they don't have that problem, but they might have what appears the opposite. It's like, they're super, I'm so confident, I have this whole thing, I have to show it to you.
The
you know
ego, strong egos.
well, there's nothing wrong with that, but
Right.
it could also be the kind of like the other side of the coin, where it's like it's still insecurity, but it appears as security. And I'm
Gotcha.
not saying that everybody has that, but that's why I'm working with the Gene Keys, because there's just a plethora of point of perspectives where we
Mm.
can look at all of this stuff and have an entry point into the same thing. We're all just diving into that sacred wound from all these angles.
Awesome. Awesome. And so tell me, it's kind of leading us perfectly into your Planet Homemaking podcast is all about gene keys. And I'm it's a very new concept to me. I mean, human design, I've even tapped a little bit into that, but why don't you go into how that really was a passion of yours to make this amazing podcast that you've been working on?
Well, it all started. I kind of realized about what's really going on in the world about 1998,
Hmm.
and I became incredibly depressed. That my dark night of the soul lasted 20 years.
Mm.
So it's like, and that doesn't mean that you're always in the darkness. You're happy, you're doing things, but there's
Yeah.
always this inner something. And 20 2018, I think, 2019, 2017, 2018, I think, um, I had the awakening, right? It's like I started looking into, right? If you are familiar with
I
that
am
stuff,
familiar. Yeah.
and it felt like kind of the truth was going to come out. There's this, very advanced military operation, both information and disinformation, both offensive and defensive, and it's also kind of multidimensional, and so I was very excited, and so
Hmm.
and then you got the so I kind of started getting out of my dark night of the soul, and started really just uh, contemplating the possibility that we can truly be free, be
Hmm.
free people as humans in this reality. Because for so long I was aware we've been living in the matrix,
Yeah.
and it's not
There's so many
exactly
people that
like the
don't even
movie.
know that we are technically
Yeah.
not free of like,
Well, we are free, but
yeah,
it has to it's not like there it's a prison. It's
right.
like it's a choice. We've come here as a
Yes.
choice, right? But but the way that it has developed throughout the Dark Ages, the whole Kali Yuga, it has been uh, um, owned by the dark side, kind of like this the shadow, what we call in the Gene Keys the shadow, manifested from the people and created a whole, collective reality. But now there are cycles in the universe, so we're coming out of that thing, and so somewhere around when the started, right, and at
Hmm.
the very first month I thought it was real, so I was afraid of touching doorknobs, and I stayed at my house eating chocolates and getting
Oh.
fat, and so but then about a month and a half into it, I looked at a drop, and it was some sort of transmission that just hit me, like,
Yeah.
this is it. The shit's hitting the fan, like, because I've known about this stuff for 20 years, that there was going to be some big shenanigan
Hmm.
stuff happen. I didn't know exactly how it was going to manifest,
Yeah.
but I knew it. I'm like, this is it. It's happening. What are you going to do? Are you going to be sitting in the couch eating chocolates and fucking around with doing nothing?
Right.
And I just kind of had a wake up call. And the first thing I started with my podcast was I just did start posting um, kind of the first thing I posted was, well, the first thing was just like, what is this vision, this idea, which is basically based on Buckminster Fuller's kind of quote when he says, do not try to uh, fix a failed system. I'm paraphrasing, and but instead create a new system, a new paradigm that is more advanced, that just makes the old paradigm obsolete.
Hmm.
And so it's like I see a lot of people fighting the matrix or the
Yeah.
system and stuff, and that is a waste of time. It's like what needs to be. We need to be aware of what's going on. We need to know what's happening, and so that way you can make decisions that create a new reality. And so it's like the whole point is to create what I call the real civilization. and
Hmm.
and and the way that I'm working on that on the Gene Keys is it's all based on understanding who we are, why are we here, and what's our destiny, what's our purpose in life, and how do we truly create a civilization. Is not by doing stuff,
Mm-hmm.
but it's by opening our heart and
Love that.
letting that love connects us to each other. And then in that place, you have an inner drive that naturally pulls you into a certain direction and moves you into a certain something, connects you with people, and now you start doing something out of that natural inner drive, natural excitement. And
Mm-hmm.
so whatever you're doing, it doesn't matter what it is. What matters is that your heart is open.
Mm.
So I've been studying the Gene Keys at that point for a while. I started studying about the 2013 or something. So at the beginning of my podcast, I started just the first thing I put was that, and then the second I posted this video by Yuri Bezmenov, which was an ex-KGB agent, explaining what is the art of subversion and how countries subvert each other. And then the next thing I started doing a series on Catherine Austin Fitts about what is the economic coup d'etat that was
Mm-hmm.
really underneath all of these. We have an economic coup d'etat going on in the world, and so that kind of lead me. And then at some point, I kind of like just started doing the news, just what's every day. But at some point, it got really heavy. I'm thinking, I'm putting all my attention on what is, and what I really want to talk about is God. I want to
Mm-hmm.
talk about who we are and how do we create. I'm an action person. I want to get shit done, and I'm always looking at what is the purpose of this? How can we apply this into life? How can this be something that it's done? It's not like airy fairy. At that point, I made a decision to make a transition from talking about the news into just talking about how do I see that as our goal here is not to change things, but to realize who we are, and to into from that place, that the love is just so powerful that
Mm-hmm.
there is nothing that can stop it. So that is why the people that these are all, they're also part of the villains, are also part of God. They're
Yes.
all part of the equation. They're the catalyst. They're pushing. We're all working together from a higher perspective. We
Yes.
understand that we're all on it. That
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean they're not going to get justice when the justice hammer
Right.
hits,
Right.
but because
You
we're
need
also
the
on a
you need the
story.
evildoers to make us do something about it. Right.
It's with if you don't have a good villain in a story, or a good challenge, whatever, even
Right.
if it's nature, whatever, the story is boring. It's just people say, well, good morning, hi, have
Yeah.
breakfast, here's
Yes.
coffee, it's like, well, you
But
turn
they're
it off
really,
and
yeah.
you
Every
go
story
out on a
seems to have
walk.
some kind of villain, right, to stir things up, and then you get the hero, and just like Star Wars, right? It's like you
Exactly.
have the Darth Vader, and he ends up being Luke's father. Like, I mean, that was the biggest twist, right, when we got to that
I
point.
love that. I love that. It was amazing. I remember that when I saw that. Then, but the funny thing about that is that I saw the Return of the Jedi first. I didn't actually see it
Oh,
from the beginning, so I
spoiler.
couldn't really get it.
Yeah.
So, but
Yeah.
but I love Star Wars, and because it's truly that ultimately comes down within. The villain is not a villain; it's our suppressed self. So
Mm,
we have in these gene keys what we call the shadows, right? And that's just every gene key is kind of like an archetype of human experience, an archetype of consciousness. And so it's a specific frequency that is like a flower. It has a seed, and then it turns into a plant, and then it blooms, right?
mm,
And so you have the seed goes in the earth, in the darkness, that is the shadow. And that's it. And its very core is pure essence. It's just a pure seed of life, of a thought, of consciousness in this reality landing here. And
right.
then, but what happens if that seed doesn't grow, it starts to rot. And so
Mm,
what happens is that if we don't change, because the nature of life is change, we can't avoid change. And this whole civilization is built around the concept of comfort and security, and that is why we're stuck, because we
mm,
need to yes, we need to we obviously we're going to be seeking comfort, but change is always going to come. And that is when we say, no, I don't want to change, and we're clinging to the walls,
yeah.
and so that is what makes life difficult. So we need to change that concept in our civilization from that to change is the constant. How do we grow up as children knowing that change is part of life, you know? And so
Mhm.
this happens a lot in civilization, in tribes in the Amazon, people that are still real. They grow up in the jungle. So
Yeah.
there have to be present because there could be a snake, or there could be a, you know, predator there, and they learn to live with change. We don't live that now. We live in boxes. You know,
Yeah.
all of these cities are squares, the cars are squares, and so the energy is blocked, right? We are protected, but we are really not growing. We're not really living. I mean, we are, but we're not to the degree that we are. But coming back full circle to what you were saying, right? The gene keys, I started at some point with this. I made that transition from saying the news, from covering the news, and I started thinking, you know, what can I talk about? Because I can only really talk about God for 5 episodes, and then I'm done. You know, it's like, okay, it's gonna be repetitive. And then, but I've been studying the gene keys, and I've been working with the gene keys for, like, you know, by that point was probably like 5 years or something. And and so I think the gene keys are eternal. You know, they just keep going. There's so much
How
stuff. You
many
know,
how many gene keys are there? Are there any specific number
there's
or
64 gene keys, and so every time I do about 7 episodes per gene key.
yeah,
But
you're
I
at
did
600. I'm like, this guy, I'm like, this just keeps
600,
going.
yeah, 640, 41
Yeah,
today. Yeah,
641. Yeah, the last time I was like
yes.
638. I'm like, this guy is a rock star. I mean, I don't know. It's like, I'm like, I might have to start at square one because there's so much to learn with
It is.
this
But
information.
the most important thing about this is to don't put the fucking jinkies on a pedestal. They're
Oh,
just a
right, right.
tool, because that's what everybody does with old systems. We put Jesus up here, we put, you know, Dolores Cannon, we put Ramtha, we put the
Right, right.
jinkies, and then we forget that these are tools. These are brothers and sisters that are sharing information with us. They understand what the journey is about. So it's about taking this stuff and using it as a map, as a toolbox.
Yes.
And what what I love about the gene keys is that this is the work of a man that studied human design and found it rigid and constraining. And
Mm,
so he spread out from human design with the focus of creating a free system,
mhm.
because human design was like, this is it, you are this, and that's what you are. But the gene keys is it's an allegory. It's like it's a tool that helps you ignite your imagination so that you can have your own understanding of things. And so it's beautiful, because when you start diving into these gene keys, this concept, these are words, and they have a frequency, tone, a vibration. It will trigger whatever it will trigger in you, and it's going to be completely different that will trigger in somebody
Mhm.
else, and both are right. And so that's
Right.
why I love it, because it's truly a system that helps you and helps us you know, uh, craft our own story,
Hmm.
right?
Do
And
you
it
still need to use your birth date and birth time for gene keys, or how do you establish what you
Well,
resonate with?
one thing is the gene keys. The gene keys are 64 archetypes. Another thing is the hologenetic profile. Another thing is the dream arc. Another thing is the delta. Another thing is the seven sacred seals. There's a bunch of stuff that Richard just keep pooping, and he's saying all of these are a trick. These are tricks
Mm,
to get you to put your attention on this stuff. Because
okay.
when you put your attention on this stuff, then you're getting your own metaphysical download, and that's what we're
Okay.
after here. So yes, there is what's called the hologenetic profile. I personally don't believe in astrology, because I think that astrology is off by one house. So
Mhm.
but at the same time, the gene keys, the hologenetic profile is computed through astrology, and the gene keys and human design is all put together to create this map to help you look into the unconscious. But the more I study the gene keys, the more I realize that all of the gene keys are the same.
Right,
They're
right.
all the movement from fear to love to enlightenment. And we have
Mm,
64 different words, 64 different entry points to get into that. So no matter what you get into your hologenetic profile, and no matter how you contemplate, no matter if it's wrong, no matter if you were born in a different date, and then now the way you put it because your parents told you that you had a different date, it doesn't matter.
right.
Whatever you're looking into, that you
That's
are
the
the
most
one
relevant for
looking.
you in that time.
You are the one looking And
Mhm.
so, because you are the one looking, whatever your interpretation of what you're seeing, it's going to be right.
Yes. And you know, that is so true, even just with our daily life, right? Experience, that experience is there for you in that moment,
Yeah.
right? So in a way, it's like, does it really matter? Like with the time you picked that day, you picked to go down that street, you picked that person to be in your life, that it could be, your best friend, it could be the villain in the street. Like, and you hear a lot, like you said, Abraham Hicks, if you're not consciously aware, I don't know what your thoughts are on this though, and with Gene Keys, if you're not consciously aware of what you want in life, do you go in a default in someone, and then anything, you're welcoming anything really to come to you? Would you
I
say
talk
that? Would
I
you
talk
agree with
about
that?
I talk about that a lot in my podcast. Is the problem of our civilization is that we're trying to fix the return of the ripple. Imagine that your attention, our superpower is the gift of God that we have received, which is free will. And free
Hmm.
will is not necessarily just doing stuff, that's secondary. Free will is our ability to position our attention in something. Because when
Hmm.
you're positioning your attention on something, it begins to grow. And then the light of God starts to flow through you, and it starts to reach out into the world. At some point, it
Mm.
gets released. And imagine it's like throwing a pebble in a calm water lake. The
Yes.
pebble lands, creates a ripple, and that's the ripple that we create when we're putting our attention in something. That ripple reaches out to the edges of the lake, and then it's going to return. So when I
Hmm.
say the problem of our civilization is that we're trying to control the return of the ripple, and so what that means is that we're going through life trying to control the already manifested reality. And that
Hmm.
doesn't work. Life doesn't work like that. The only control we have is where do we put our attention? Because
Right.
that's what's going to throw the stone. But once life already happened, you're all it's already done. It's the food is cooked, either you eat it or you dodge it. So when you go to Abraham, you need to be conscious aware of what you're creating. That is priority number one.
Hmm.
You have to become, and but also don't become obsessed with it, because it can
Sure.
also become, and it has happened to me, it can also become something where you're like, you're worried that I'm not going to manifest like bullshit in my life, and then you're not enjoying anything, and now you're freaking out about, oh my God, I created
Yeah.
that by thinking that, and now I'm like, ah. And
Yeah.
so it does happen. And so, but it's more about learning how to relax, learning how to have fun. If you, and this is also another, from another channel, Bashar, I learned this, follow your excitement,
Hmm.
follow what that I call it, the singing in your heart. When your attention is on something and your heart gets like, yay, it's like it's singing,
Yeah.
right? That's the way. Don't doubt it. Just, it might
Yes.
not be the way forever, but it's the way now that will lead to another door. And so if you are always listening to that singing in your heart, you will always, and then you put your attention on that, and you keep
Hmm.
your attention on that, whatever that means. You might grow, might expand, you
Yeah.
might do stuff, right? You're on track. You don't have to worry about that. And then you can relax. Because you could also be too, become kind of anal and go like, you gotta
Yeah.
be like,
And I
but
and
that's
like
what
you,
personal development kicks
just
into.
like you said
Go
with
ahead.
anybody, like following anybody and it making it like the end all be all is it's your journey at the end of the day. You get to choose. That's why we're all consciousness in these vehicles, right? So we get to choose. I get to choose whatever I want for today. And that's okay. And
You
being a
can change your
perfectionist,
focus at any
right.
moment.
I felt that was a really good point though when I listened to her law of attraction, because I played with it a little bit. And I ended up, if you don't mind me sharing, I had gotten varicose veins after my children, and they got really bad. The appearance looked horrible, but they were really painful different times of the month. And I decided, I'm like, I'm going to take care of this. And all of a sudden, I knew I had to get the surgery done. And I was willing to do that. I had already just listened to Abraham. I'm like, okay, I'm going to feel really good after the surgery. It's going to be great. It's going to be like I have brand new pair of legs. And so I ended up calling the doctor, and I was willing to put thousands of dollars down. The operation was covered 100% by my insurance. And I was just like, all right. And I went through the process, got them, and I just played with it on like a little scale. Cause I like honestly was like, anything could have happened. They could have been like, oh no, we can't do the procedure, or no, we wouldn't cover anything. But when I got that 100% covered, I really was like, I'm going to go with this. Like, whether it's really manifesting and attracting it, I'm going to take it. It resonated with me. So I don't know. Sometimes I feel like we take things so seriously. Let's have a little fun and play, and you never know what will come out on the other end.
Yeah, absolutely. We're
Yeah.
always creating reality because we're always having our attention somewhere. The biggest currency in the world is not money, it's not time, it's
Right.
attention. And that is why we're where we are right now, because people's attention is being hijacked. It's being put
Mm,
on wherever people want to put it. So the true spiritual journey is reclaiming your attention and say, I command my attention here, and it
hmm.
stays there. No matter, everybody's gonna come and talk, oh, this is happening, or whatever, or anything. You create kind of like, you become, I call it spiritual reps. You just practice and practice positioning your attention. I want it here. And but the easiest way to do it is not like forcing. It's because actually these last 7 episodes I've been talking about Jinky 34, which is
Hmm.
the shadow force that goes to the gift of strength. So strength is very different than force. And so it's strength is a dance. It's like, to position your attention, I always align it with the singing in your heart. And
Hmm.
so now it's gonna be a walk in the beach, because you're not forcing it. And then it becomes stronger because people are gonna come and tell you whatever they're gonna say. You can't do this can't happen. Or they're gonna try to say this is happening and you're gonna freak out. No, I'm not freaking out. I'm having fun. My life is good. Thank you very much. Bye bye.
So with what you just said, where do you see humanity at this time and where it might be going?
Well, we're in the middle of a transition. We're in the middle of an initiation, if a test. All of humanity is being pushed to the edge to take responsibility for ourselves and
Mhm.
for our decisions and our choices, because this is a coming of age as a civilization. We need to become self-responsible for our attention. And
Mhm.
so the attention, we right now we're facing the greatest enemy that humanity has ever faced, which is the power of marketing. The power
Mhm.
of propaganda has become
Propaganda, big time.
incredibly powerful, to the point that people are in what's called mass formation psychosis. And
Mhm.
this is an actual,
I'm familiar with it.
psychology term, right? I actually have a video on my about page of Jorn.tv that talks about what it is and the whole thing.
Yes.
But it's basically people are under a mind control spell, and
Mhm.
so they can't differentiate the truth from lies anymore. And so it's kind of like created an illusionary alternate reality
Mhm.
that people are living. So if you don't know what the truth is, you don't have a starting point, you don't have a point A. And so
Mhm.
if you don't have a point A, if you had a pen, you have to start somewhere to make a line. If you don't
Mhm.
have that beginning point, you can't move to point B. And so, what we're experiencing right now in the world is a lot of bullshit that's being pushed on people that are really curtailing their freedom and literally killing them. We're experiencing genocide right now.
Yeah.
And
It's
and
really
people don't
sad.
even know it's happening. And
Yeah.
so, but that is the catalyst. That is the wake up moment. Now you took this fucking bio weapon, and now your child is dead. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, but it's happening. Or you
Yeah.
miscarried your baby. In the
Yeah.
UK, 40% of pregnant mothers have lost their kids. It's happening all over the
I know
world. But
Canada did a very uh, some research on that too, on like the whole miscarriages and vaccination during pregnancy, and they're seeing just a lot of premature births and stillbirths, and it's just that is a whole, I mean, obviously I think that is there for a reason, like a catalyst too. Why would you say some people are not, here again I'm going to use this word, who woken up or not buying this mass, like this storyline? Like, why is it some that are like, what, like, and it's nonsensical, where others are like, yeah, this is real, this is, and they're buying all these stories? What makes a consciousness accept it or not? Is there anything that you found in
there's so many things. There's so many things that have contributed to that. But if I were to point it out to a core,
Mhm.
it's just people that are connected with themselves.
Mm.
that they
Yes, the
know
journey.
themselves,
Right.
they know how to listen to their intuition, and they could go like, this sounds like bullshit, and it
Yes.
could be like from all walks of life, people that are not spiritual at all, they're just,
Right.
Bill is up there, and it sounds like bullshit. It's like,
Yes.
or it could be very, in fact, a lot of the people that are stuck in the mass formation psychosis, they have PhDs, and they have a lot of
Yes.
money, and they're really intelligent people, and they say,
Yes.
well, how cannot you believe this thing, because I have all these degrees and blah blah blah. You're a rat.
I mean, I'm someone who could totally I live in this parallel reality where it's like, I mean, because I love so many people in my life that, you know, they choose what they want is their truth. But I'm shocked, really. I'm like little old me, like, how am I seeing this? It's like someone took down the veil, or like, the subliminal messaging is like, how can you not see that? Hello, and you got
I
to
know.
let them go through their own way, their own path at their own time.
Yeah, you cannot really sit down. I did the Facebook soapbox when the whole thing happened. I was like,
You're like, wake up, everybody, come on.
and they're like, you're insane, unfriend, unfriend,
Unfriend,
unfriend.
I know,
Like,
and
you're
and it
insane.
does.
You're crazy. You're conspiracy theorists. And they're like,
Right,
how can't you see it? The don't fucking work. The
right,
air is coming out everywhere. You were talking about a microscopic thing. It goes through the. It doesn't hit because, and here's the reason why, because they can't possibly believe that everybody believes it, and it's not true. And this is the thing, because if you study Sun Tzu's Art of War, this is exactly how wars are made, because we look back in war and say, well, how did that happen? Where did
right,
that started? It starts in the mind. It starts
right,
mind fucking the people into believing that something is real when it isn't.
right. And I think a lot of people have a hard time connecting the dots between Nazi Germany and what's going on here. I mean, that's how
It's
they
the same
got
thing. Yeah.
everyone to do what they did, because they said that Jews were diseased, that they
Yeah.
had a disease. Like,
Yeah.
and so for some reason, no, 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 that can't be it. Well, why couldn't it be it again? History repeats itself. We know this. And it's almost like that part of the brain shuts off. And I'm like, I'm just kind of really lost. But I'm excited. Unfortunately, like you said, sometimes people have to go through their own experience of loss. That's what
Always.
they
Yeah.
contracted here for. They were contract, maybe some in my own belief system, maybe some are here to show us the way. And maybe that wasn't their role here.
Mhm.
So, with love, we just have to embrace each other, because that's at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to get to, right? Just to be able to live through, as we are God's children, and part of God. Love is everything.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a story. I see it like a beautiful, epic story, like a movie, like a book that is just like the epic of humanity, and it
Yeah.
has all of that, the darkness and the sad, but at the end, we find out the light. You know.
Yeah. Part of
Hero's
me just
journey.
like wants to accelerate there quickly. I think some of us are impatient. Like, can we get to that? Can we get to that love story? Um,
Well, you can get to that in your own personal life,
yes, you
you
can.
know?
And I am very grateful for that. But sometimes it's like, yeah, when you entertain in the outside world, like you said, you have to tap in. And I actually watch your news. I find it quite entertaining on your channel. I do. I find the best information on your channel. I really do. And I
In the
appreciate
Telegram?
on your Telegram. Yes, I really do appreciate your channel, because I don't go and watch the news on television.
There's
And I
nothing. There's no news on television.
because I'm just like, well, where is it? Where's the storyline? At least I can read what you're posting or listen to I'm posting and discern what resonates with me or doesn't, right?
You have
So
to. Yeah.
so I thank you for that. Is there anything else that you would like to touch on?
Most important thing is love, like you said. Ultimately, it's like, if everything gets confusing, or if it's too much, or if just ask yourself, what would love do? Where is love in
Mhm.
everything decision in your life? Where is love? Where is love? Where is love? Where is love in myself? Where's love here? If you're in a relationship and it sucks, you're like, where's love? I gotta get
Mhm.
out of here because
Yeah.
love's not here. or
Yeah.
or or maybe it's you that you're not bringing the love to the table. And so that's basically my whole work with my podcast, with my Gene Keys guide work, with my Dark Night of the Soul coaching. Is really getting down to the center of what's most important. Love yourself.
Mhm.
Love, and not love your personality, because I really talk about the personality a lot in my podcast. The personality is a construct. It's not real. We're all really two people living in the same body. We are who we are, the true children of God, and then there's the personality that knows fucking everything, but it doesn't
Right.
know nothing. And so it's always going to tell you that this is what you need to do, it's everything that the personality comes up with is inside of a box.
Yeah.
But what we really need to start listening to is the voice of the mystery that you
Mhm.
don't know, but you're putting your attention. You have no idea where it's going to come from. You don't know what the path is going to do, but you know because you understand that all of the universe, all of the information in the universe exists, and you have access to it
Yeah.
just by putting your attention into that. And that is self-love.
Mm.
When you start realizing, where is my heart singing? Is it singing in this conversation? Is it singing in this relationship? Is it singing in this business, in this endeavor, in this decision? And so turn always to listen to that inner drive, that excitement, that heart singing. And that is your love. And then when you get used to that stuff, now you start bringing it into the picture with other people. Realize that we're all dealing with the same shit. We're all
Yeah.
feeling, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy of love. So you get an asshole in your life, you go like, well, I mean, he's dealing with that shit. That
Mhm.
doesn't mean you're going to put up with their shit, but you're not going
Right.
to, you're going to look at that person as a brother that's going through their own war. And you can just say,
Yeah.
well, God bless you, brother. And then you keep going. But it's
Yeah.
not going to get to you. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's important that energy does get to you,
Mhm.
because it's your power opening the crust that we have built around our heart, and it needs to
Mhm.
break it so that you truly love. And this is, we got 600 episodes about this stuff on my podcast, so there's
Yeah.
a lot of depths of layers about this. But the more you put your attention on this stuff, it starts kicking in, and it's not something you're going to figure out in 20 minutes. This is a commitment to your to loving, to a commitment to love,
Mhm.
commitment to truly experience and living love.
Mhm.
And it's education. You have to have the theory in order to have that observation and know where to put your attention. Because if you don't know, it's like you're on the internet, and you don't, if you don't have the address of the website, yeah, maybe you can find it, but it's when you have the address, you can go directly to that, and
Mhm.
then that would lead you through other links to stuff that it's similar to that one.
Yeah. What a great message. And I think that I'm very interested to explore a little bit more about the gene keys for sure. Because I know through this exploration that, I'm finally loving myself for the first time in forever. Like you said, we're not unique, we're not special. It's nice to know that we're not alone, but it's sad at the same time. So if we can find places to go to, I would love for people to come to your channel. So please tell us again where we can find you, and that way people can explore more about what you do.
You can find my homepage of my podcast is journ.tv. That's JOURN.tv. And
Mhm.
on that page at the very bottom, there's a black menu that has 5 links. One of them says Gene Keys. If you click on that one, you can get started there. Or you can just listen to whatever episode shows up, the newest one.
Mhm.
The About page, you can find all of my social media. I have a Telegram news channel, a Telegram chat room, and you can contact me directly there. I have a Twitter account, a Truth Social, a Rumble. And on my Rumble, we have interviews with people like we're doing here, with beautiful
Right.
people that have gone through their dark night of the soul. And they tell us their story about their life. And you can find that also on the Pioneers link of my journ.tv. And we have these are both on video and audio. And if you click on the support button on journ.tv, you can learn more about my coaching program. I have a very specific coaching program where we help people get through their dark night of the soul. It doesn't have to take years or decades. It's a change of a very specific habit that we can change a neural net in about 90 days. And if you're ready to make that change, because not everybody's ready, you can get out of your dark night of the soul in about 90 days. So if you're going through your dark night of the soul and you need help, click on that support button on journ.tv and learn more about that.
Awesome. And when we post this, we'll add some of the links to the bottom so people could know, or wherever in our footnotes. But thank you so much for meeting with me today. I really enjoyed hearing your story and more about you. Now I could put a face to a name, even though I've seen your beautiful hair. I love your hair. I can't wait to meet him. But I want to thank our audience too for joining us today. Thank you so much. And we hope to see you the next episode. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the Conscious Broadcast. Have a wonderful day.